Okay, Donald Stojack talks to interesting people, and today I've got an extremely interesting person that I'm just honored to have on here, humbled to have on here. Craig Sowers, let's bring you up and let's play full out here. Fair enough? He's here, right?
Apparently, when I join someone else's meeting, can you hear me, Donald?
I can hear you, Craig. Yes.
It automatically, my settings have me on mute. When I host my own meetings, that's never an issue. So I started talking. It happened to me last time on here. I'm like, oh, I'm muted.
And let me see. I want you to tell people a little bit about yourself, but I'm going to tell people who Craig is to Donald. Okay, Craig is one of my what I call one of my core mentors. Okay, when you want to know who is Donald Stojack and how did he get here, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Craig Sowers. He's one of those voices that I heard a dozen plus years ago that I just says, I want to emulate this guy. I want to figure out what he's doing and I want to come match him and I want to be in his world. And, you know, it wasn't too long before him and I were sitting down and having a meal together. And I'm going to tell you how much I tracked with this guy. I remember that meal. He ordered first. And all I said to the waitress is, I'll have the same thing. That's how much I admire Craig and his leadership. And I've watched him as we worked with Chet and Tony. I remember when we were business masters together. I mean, that was a scary time for me to be in that big room. And I watched Craig and I watched what he did. And I duplicated it because I knew what he was doing was working. So I want you to pay very close attention to Craig and what we're going to talk about here today. So who is Craig Sowers other than Donald likes him a bunch?
So who am I? That's the ultimate question, right? Who am I? What am I? Yeah. So just what I'm currently doing these days, just so people know, is I'm a business coach, a business mentor to small business owners, probably much like all of you, right? And privately held companies, don't work with corporations. And I just basically guide them and direct them and mentor them to towards perfecting their business. Okay. And I've been doing this for over 20 years in some form or another. And it's just it's kind of the manifestation of a vision I had decades ago. Okay. So that's the introduction to what I'm doing now. Yeah.
And we're going to talk a bit today about success, but more success from the avenue of creating your ideal life. Correct, Craig?
Yeah, I call it crafting a life. And I learned a long time ago, and you guys, I'm sure, can all relate to this to a degree, is that most people just let life happen to them. And I decided a long time ago, no, I'm not, that's unacceptable to me. I'm going to happen to life. So it's a much more proactive view of where, what am I going to do with my time? What's my vision? And how am I going to, make that bring that into reality? Okay. So let me do this, Donald. I have for the last 25 years, let's say, I've had this particular quote on my office wall. I look at it every day. Let me make sure I can get this whole thing. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen. And I think this is a good place to start. And let's do that one. Is everybody seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah. It's titled The Art of Living. That's been my motto for a long, long time. Okay. A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he is doing and leaves others to determine whether he is working or playing. To himself, he always seems to be doing both.
How do we get there?
Yeah. Okay, so that makes me think of another, well, it starts out with a vision, right?
Mhm.
What is it I want my life to be? So most everyone here works in some form with business owners, right? The majority of people coaching to some degree. Okay, so think about it this way, and I would like to use analogies. And I used to be a home builder, by the way, in another lifetime. But it's so you're building homes, built custom homes. And to build a custom home, where do you start? Well, you start with a blank piece of property, right? A raw lot. And from that shape and size of that lot and a vision you have in your mind, you go to a designer, an architect, and you design a home, a house, and you put it down on paper. That's called a blueprint, right? Okay, so this is the home that I'm going to build. And then there's step by step to get to. You just don't magically say, wave your magic wand and go poof, and the blueprint is now a standing home. It takes a lot of work and organization and vision and pursuit of that vision to realize that house. It's the same with the business. Okay, if you're going to start, and by the way, let me do this. I'm going to take this off the screen, and I want to see if anyone here has ever built a business that, with a few employees, 2, 3 employees or more. Raise your hand. Okay, a few of you. Did you have a business? And feel free to speak up too. Did you first create a business plan? Yes or no? There's one yes. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of people actually start businesses without actually having a plan. They just kind of wing it. They have an opportunity and so forth. And that can work out okay. But it's much better if most great businesses start with a plan, especially if it's a startup that's seeking financing, right? They got to have a business plan and present that and do a proposal to investors. And so it's the same with your life. Okay, you start out with, you sit down and you do an exercise, and it might sound counterintuitive, but the start is actually the end. You start at the end. What's the end result that I want in my life? And that's all aspects of my life. So that could, my career, my business plans, my family plans, my leisure plans, my travel plans. What is it that I want? And you just start planning it out. Literally put it on paper. So that's a start, Donald.
Interesting. I'm hitting the big 6'4" here in a couple of weeks, which is, that's one of those, just those number things. And I always reflect back by decades. When I was in my 20s, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But I knew when I was younger, I wanted a few children. I in my brain, I thought, it's funny, I had the number 6 in my mind. I wanted 6 kids, right? From early on. Well, guess how many kids I got?
Let's see, half a dozen.
Yep, right on the button. I mean,
Yeah.
right to the mark.
Yeah.
And I think back, I actually had that as a plan. Probably by the time I realized what reproduction was and how that all played out, building a family, says, hey, 6 sounds like a good number for me. It was never 1 or 2 or 1 or just an endless number. 6, it stuck out. Interesting.
So let me ask you, Donald, did you have a step-by-step process for getting written down to get to your 6 children family?
I got married as soon as I could. I silly me, I grabbed the first gal that would go down the aisle with me. That was, so it was there.
Did you have a written plan? I'll take that as a no.
No, it probably should have though.
Well, no. So shoulda, coulda, woulda, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing about
I winged it.
life and moving forward. Don't should on yourself.
Yeah, I winged it.
Just another, yeah, you winged it. And my point in that is, even if you do have a plan, I guarantee you it wouldn't have gone exactly to the T. Okay, so you have to be able to adjust.
Mhm.
So, who am I? And so I had a plan when I coming out of high school. And although if I had applied myself in high school, I most likely could have got a full ride to a favored university, but I had no interest in academics. for whatever reason. And we won't go into those details, but I was entrepreneur in nature. I actually started 2 businesses while I was in high school. Okay. So I was already on that roll. I didn't know anything about business other than that I could make a lot more money in my own business than I could if I went for a minimum wage job after school. Right. In fact, my first kind of real job after a paper route and that type of thing, which is entrepreneurial in nature, if you've ever done paper route, it includes selling and getting up at 4 a.m. on your own volition without supervision, and grabbing the papers they left out on the street and bringing them into the garage and folding them up and put them in your bags on your bike and riding around the neighborhood and tossing them before you go to school, right? And then, of course, if you wanted to make more money because you got paid per customer, you'd go canvass the streets to get more subscriptions. Now, I didn't realize what I was doing at that time, at 12 years old. I just wanted to earn some money. But I was actually being trained by this opportunity that I took. And by the way, that's another thing. An opportunity is only an opportunity if you take it.
Ah,
That's another one of my little gems that I share along the way. Okay. So many opportunities are passed by people. Maybe they don't recognize them. They don't think they're of value, but seize the day, right? Carpe diem.
mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you have to seize every opportunity, but reflect on that and position yourself to like, okay, when an opportunity arises, and a lot of people, though, they do it out of fear, out of doubt. Okay. Instead of just going for it. Right.
So how do you let's maybe go a little bit sideways on that, because so many people, they jump into stuff because they have that fear of missing out. How do you go from having that fear of missing out to basically grabbing and running with an opportunity, rather than coming into something out of that fear stance, which oftentimes leads to non-action, to jumping into something to take full advantage of it and run it to the hills?
Good question. That's one of the values of having a plan. Okay. So you say, does this opportunity, is it aligned with my plans? Is it going to further me accomplishing my vision, me creating my life that I want? And that's relatively easy to coincide or, to discern. Okay. Does this further my goal, my plan, or does it not? So that's my measuring stick. Okay.
So you're saying taking this pencil or pen out and taking a piece of paper and putting something down.
Exactly. Although these days most people are going to do it on a keyboard, right?
Could be. I'm still doing the when I mentor people, I tell them take the pencil and paper out. I think there's a lot of power. Absolutely, on the keyboard, we want to have that digital thing, but I think the research has shown over and over there's power in this pen.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And my position is, for if people are completely like pen and paper is foreign to them, for the younger generation especially, and if there's resistance there, we'll just do it on your computer then. Just, in other words, just do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're going to get a benefit one way or the other. You can argue the percentage of benefit greater from pen and paper. But the great benefit is going through the exercise and getting those words on a paper or digital, if it is, and being able to review them. Like I just showed a, digital vision of those words that were written on paper at one time. Right. But again, I got it posted up on my wall. I read it every day, to remind myself.
How important are metrics around, say, actual dollar amount you're going to, or certain KPIs, certain key performance indicators? How crucial is that stuff?
So for me, it's not that crucial, not at this stage in my life.
Okay.
It used to be like when I met you and I was a sales executive and sales trainer and so forth, then metrics were very, very important. And with all my clients, they're highly important. I work with them. In fact, both clients I had yesterday, we went over their recent KPIs. Okay. And so running a business, it's really clear. And again, I say, because I don't have to work. I don't have to do what I'm doing. I can sail off into the sunset anytime, but I love what I do. And so my focus is on providing the service, developing these relationships. I mean, I have clients been with me 6 years and they don't want me to go away ever. because you
They're
just,
smart.
it's bringing value, right? So you're bringing value, and that's one of the parts I want to get in today is creating value. We're talking about creating a vision for your life to truly accomplish that end goal. Then you have to provide value in the marketplace, in the community, okay, in your family, in all your relationships. By creating value, then the return comes on that.
And I
that
think, and I
the more
think,
value, the more value you provide over time, the greater return you'll receive.
I think sometimes people get hung up on that value because I think they are maybe oblivious to their own value. Sometimes I think I'm as guilty as that as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes inside of our box, it seems so obvious to us that we don't understand when we share it out to the world how crucial it is. Richard Kilbon and I did a recording the other day, and I posted that on the YouTube channel for you guys. And I know as we went through that, even myself, I was going, this is brilliant stuff, right? But as we are doing it, sometimes we don't see the brilliance of it. So can we talk to that value issue? How do you recognize your own value and then transmit that outward?
So, so for me, that's never been a problem. From the get-go, like I chose a very unconventional path, like I said, out of high school. Even in high school, my teachers, my counselors are encouraging me. They're like, Craig, you got what it takes to like be a 4.0 student. And I'm like, well, and to get into some higher level classes or more advanced or more creative type of things. Like, for instance, my English 1 teacher is a freshman, like second day, she says, Craig, you got opportunity here. You've got skill, you got talent, you've got something, right? And I'm going to encourage you to take this creative writing class. And I'll never forget it. My response was, is that required? She says, well, no, but if you want to advance your life. I'm like, oh, no, thanks. My whole thing was I'm going to skate through high school. And then I'm going to, at that time, I didn't really have a vision after, but by the time I graduated high school, I had a vision. Okay. And that vision was very unconventional. Okay. Now I hadn't written it down because I hadn't learned that trick yet, or the value of that, the importance of that. But my vision was like a 5 to 10 year vision of adventure travel, because I had gotten into mountaineering in high school, and that's all I wanted to do. Was I wanted to see all the mountain ranges of the world and climb and hike and adventure and meet interesting people like we are here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to interesting people. In order to do that, you had to have, so this is where I'm going to come back to all this that ties into business and where I am now. In order to accomplish that, you have to have the time to do that. How many people have the time to just, and resources to travel the globe year after year after year? Okay, very few. And even if they do, a lot of them still choose not to, because that's not their thing.
Right.
Okay. Well, life happens. Okay. And basically at 20 years old, I ended up fathering a child, which wasn't in the 10-year plan. I figured after that, I'd figure out a family. Like, unlike you, who knew that you wanted 6 kids at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even given that any consideration. I just wanted, 6 mountain ranges on 6 continents. And so this comes back to taking responsibility for your life and mapping it out. And so time freedom, this is a key for me. Time freedom, and then who am I as an individual in the world? So come back to a world view, right? And my personal view, and I didn't understand what I was doing at that time, but later on, as I became more educated in business and in relationships and meeting really interesting people and talking to them and contemplating the general philosophy of life, I came to the conclusion, and it comes down to first principles. What are our core principles that drive our values? And personally, my first principle is that we are all individual sovereign beings. Nobody owns me. Okay. I'm not indebted. I'm not indebted to anybody, but I act freely, of free will. I engage with people, right? Okay. So that's but here's the thing about that concept is that, and I came up with this little saying after I was studying this, the ultimate free. So that's the ultimate freedom, to be a sovereign, like the old kings of old, right? Nobody tells me what to do. But if you're really going to function in the world in an effective, positive, manner, what's the word I'm looking for? It's abundant, and attract abundance to you. You can do one of two things. Think of the kings. You can either be a looter and a plunderer and a raider, or you can also take on the ultimate responsibility, which is obviously the way to go. So my saying is this: the ultimate freedom is also the ultimate responsibility. So no excuses. Taking taking responsibility for everything in my life, everything that I've done, because basically where we are in life is the end result of all the decisions we've ever made. So I was faced with the decision at that time. It's like, okay, this woman is pregnant. We're not married. She was just a temporary woman before I went on my next adventure, in my view. What do I do? And it was a huge, like, come to Jesus moment, right? And of course, I'm like, well, you got to be responsible for the actions. So, my life changed. I became a father and a family, but I still had that vision. So this is the other thing about, best laid plans. Okay. It comes down to your principles. So again, that time freedom was always key to me. So with the family, I created as much time freedom as I could within those circumstances. It was always seeking more opportunities. Okay. Here's back to the opportunity thing. Okay, what opportunities are going to arise that I can embrace to create more time freedom for myself? And that was the measuring stick. For me, time freedom. Does this provide more time freedom? Which means I'm getting more money for the less time. Is basically the equation there.
It's interesting. I had a conversation with somebody this week, and I had to let them understand that I don't work by time, so
Yeah.
they want to know how much per hour, or they were trying to calculate what they were going to pay me because of the hours. And I says, you're using the wrong measuring stick, right? It's like, let's reboot this conversation. And so maybe that's a major aha for everybody is, tie your compensation to the results, make your results off the charts and your compensations off the charts. And that frees up the time to follow what you really want to do and what you really want to have.
So Donald, that makes me think of when we used to do these training calls, these sales training calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the key components of being an effective salesperson is overcoming objections. So that's part of the training, right? That's part of the workshopping. And the basic formula is to I can literally write them down for all business owners, all sales departments, all executives, and for your team. Write down what are the 5 most common objections that you get, or the 6 or 7, whatever it's going to be, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's craft. So here's back to crafting, right? Okay. What are the best responses? And of course, you have a team, and you typically have someone who naturally is good at that. So what's the model the best and train the rest. So yep. is the model there. So is there anyone on the team? And of course, the leader should already know this, but you guide to identifying what are the best responses to each objection. And do you remember one of my favorite overcoming objections rebuttals to an objection? The objection is, well, what's this going to cost? Do you remember that? Yep. I use it to this day. If I'm not really selling much anymore, but if that happens, do you remember what it is?
No.
Okay, so it's tied to the topic we're having right now, value, right? I'm like, well, let me ask you, Donald, are you more concerned with price or value?
I'm more concerned with value.
Yeah, and everyone who's serious about, so if you're selling coaching, for instance, that's a great rebuttal. And now let's talk about value, not price, which is exactly what you're saying, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. My favorite memory is I always use I call it the Craig Sowers response. Like when somebody asks, hey, I need to talk to some people you've done this for. I need some referrals. Right. And I remember you, Craig, saying, that's not going to happen. And then there's always a pregnant pause after that, right? So it's very, very definite that's not going to happen. And let me tell you why, because that's not what you really want.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's not going to work in your favor.
Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of, closing techniques and sales.
Yeah, because we could talk all day.
I could go for there forever.
but it does come down to, in life, when life is kind of presented to yourself and it's not going the direction that you want it to go, sometimes you need to say to yourself, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. And by the way, so speaking of that, I told my little story. So in business, if you study business books or study business trends like we do here, is that, in fact, I just did this presentation in Memphis a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things I focus on with my clients, and all my clients, they're not solopreneurs, right? In fact, if you are a solopreneur, in other words, you don't have employees, but you own your own business, raise your hand. Yeah, I'm just about everybody. And anyway, I was doing, but one of the things I work on, and the title of my talk was maximizing the value of your business. So what's the end goal, right? So like I'm working with one of my clients right now he can hire a GM because he's an owner operator of a business that's like 7 employees. And he's been doing it his whole life. He's like you, Donald. He's like, 64, approaching that age, when I'm 64. And, and by the way, if that was really flat, I was in France. I was walking across Spain one time, and I met this really lovely French girl. And so, we walked together. Basically, we walked from France to Portugal. And so this is part of the time freedom, right? I mean, who of you can take off 9 weeks and just go adventure somewhere in the world? Yeah, I can. And that's, again, so that's an example of how I manifest that bigger vision. Again, so back to that, it's like the vision didn't manifest itself in the exact details that I had planned because of this big wrench that I threw in there, right? Mm-hmm. Having a family. But I just said, okay, how can I still accomplish at least that in a different way? And it's manifested itself in wonderful, beautiful ways that I may never have realized if it had gone strictly according to plan. It would have been replaced by other wonderful experiences, right? But anyway, back to singing, which, you're a musician. A lot of you here are musician. And I was singing all the time as we walk across Spain. I just love to sing. And she looks at me one day and she goes, Craig, when most people sing, they go like this. When you sing, you go like this. I'll never forget it. So those are the kind of experiences you can have when you give yourself the freedom to go hang out for 9 weeks in a foreign country, Yeah. So what were we? That was a little side story.
Yeah, but it does, it is imagining that ideal world you want to be in.
Yeah.
And creating the plan and go get it. Just, John here on the call, he's over in Europe. Are you still over in Europe, John? Yeah, he's on one of those 9
Still,
weeks. Yeah. And so you just, and I know you just decided to do it and created a plan, and there you are. So it is doable, right? It's not outside of the realm of possibility if that's your thing. I mean, just don't get locked into something that is not where you're going. I've been to
one of the beautiful things about technology and the fact that we're all visiting here from our own homes around the world, right, is that we can ply our trade, we can offer our services and deliver those services without ever leaving your office. Okay. However, you also have the flexibility. You could go anywhere in the world and do the same. So I about this. So adventure travel is one of my things. So last summer, I did a 5-week bicycle tour from Oregon, Southern Oregon, down the entire California coast on a bicycle to the border of Mexico. And it was just an amazing adventure. But along the way, I'm holding client calls. In fact, I should have I have this great photo. I'm at this lighthouse in my cycling gear on my bicycle. Like these strangers came up and said, "Hey, can we take a picture of you?" And they sent it to me. It was really cool. But I'm on the phone call with my client in Mexico. You know?
Yeah.
So, Alejandro is just, guess where I am? It's just like, and I sent them the photo later, and he's like, wow. So, and on that same trip, I was at a restaurant above the beach in Malibu having a client call. You can hear the waves crashing down, where are you, Craig? And they were excited to hear about my travels, and still, so I can go anywhere in the world and still do what I do.
Yeah.
All of you can too. It's a beautiful thing.
That the technology is sitting there, and if you don't have it figured out, figure it out. I mean, I just invested in the newest. I got my son take me to Costco and says, I need an iPad, right? Tell me which one to buy, right? And so even if you don't know what it is, to figure it out, I mean, the ability to just do it from anywhere, even different rooms in your house, or Carly going down to the beach, as long as you got a signal, just doing it.
You don't even need an iPad. On this trip, I just did it from the phone. Same features on the phone that you have on an iPad.
Yeah, the phones are so powerful now. So there should be no limits for us. The limits are only the limits you place on yourself.
It's a beautiful life. Yeah. So again, back to that opening quote, right? No sharp distinction between work and play. It's all part of the fulfillment of one's vision, doing what one loves to do. And that's it. So people ask me all the time, why aren't you retired? I said, well, because I love working with people and I love making money. Right. I mean, that's cool, but I don't have to do this, 40 hours a week, and I don't anywhere near that. And as well, we've talked about it before. Like I called in on training calls back in the day from the ski lift in Mammoth, right? Well, I'm skiing a Great Powder Day. So that's the lifestyle thing. That was
so when you listen to Craig, do you feel the attitude? It's not an arrogant attitude, it's a confident attitude. And I was working with a couple of the groups, different mastermind groups that I lead. The conversation this week was the willingness to walk away, right? And so, inside yourself, you need to not feel needy. Yeah. You need to have the confidence that whatever opportunity, potential client, potential deal, whatever, is not going to make or break you, because you do have that plan. If it doesn't fit in the plan, if it doesn't feel right, not that you will walk away, but you have to be willing to walk away. And that willingness to walk away keeps the power in your court. Does that make sense? That's huge. Do you feel that with Craig? It's like he can do it, but he's already told you he doesn't need to do it. And so many of us here have embodied that same feeling. And if you've never even gotten a client yet, don't be so needy that you have to have them. Have that feeling that you can walk away because it doesn't fit your plan. And they will sense that energy. I'm going to tell you every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the contributions to my success is hiring coaches myself. Okay. Mentors. And whether I hired them, which I've done, or I just happen to be around them. And, some of the people I've been around closely, really influential, but I had the vision before I met these people. Right. And they just came into my life. It's like when I got the opportunity to work with Chet Holmes, it just sprung. I didn't pursue it. It just sprung up. And as soon as it sprung, and at that time, I didn't know who the guy was, but I could recognize an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'd been with us. I'd been doing I've been working with a seminar company, promoting the seminars and doing presentations. And I was traveling all over the country and at these big seminars, which were like 2-3 days, and there was 50 speakers. There was another speaker named Rich, and we hit it off. And then the event, sometime later, the company dissolved. That ended. And so Rich called me up. He says, hey, there's this guy doing these webinars. He's looking for speakers. He's looking for presenters, and you were always a good presenter on stage, but you're going to be doing it from home on your computer. Yeah, a webinar. I'm like, what the hell's a webinar?
Yeah, what's a webinar? We used to have to explain to people, we're going to do a webinar. What's a webinar? Well, it's like a seminar, but you do it from the comfort of your own home. I mean, it's like, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, well, okay, so I looked up who this guy is, Chet Holmes. Okay, best-selling author of a business, and that's kind of right up my alley, blah, blah, blah. So I called and, you know, and it was really funny, Don. I don't know if I told you the story, but the guy who interviewed me, he said, okay, look, I want to hire you, but you can't start as a presenter.
Yeah.
You start as a basic salesperson. I'm like,
Mhm.
no problem. I said, but after I said, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to be your best salesperson. And so in 1 month's time, you're going to promote me to the position I applied for. Right. And again, and by the way, this is all as independent contractors, right? This is pure commission. So you're not really an employee. So again, so sure enough, I became the #1 salesperson on that sales team at that entry level sales quickly, like the first week. Then, and then eventually, I became a trainer and an executive and a presenter too. Right. So that's an example of an opportunity. And from that, so I met Chet, became friends, met Tony Robbins, met Scott Hallman, who I partner with now in our business to work.
Mhm.
I met you. I met Ted, right? I met all these people that are still, we're all friends and connected, and everyone's really successful in crafting their own life. It's really cool so when you pursue that and you get opportunities and you seize them, typically those opportunities will lead to surrounding yourself to like-minded people. When you pursue your vision of excellence, you're going to bump into other people who embrace that same concept, whether they do it consciously or that's just how they live their life. And surrounding yourself with like-minded people is key to your success.
It's interesting. So, it's partly how you define yourself is what you're going to see. And I read a quote the other day about, like if you're a whiny negative person, you'll see whiny negative things. If you're a positive person, you'll find that. And I remember that pivot for me because I had been a very successful musician, but I had run that out as far as I could play it. I mean, I'd taken it as far and I needed to do something different for my little hometown here. And I was looking in Craigslist, right? And there you could get a job in downtown Seattle, passing out flyers on a corner for $15 an hour, where this other one said, we only hire top producers and we don't hire resumes. And I thought, well, that's me because I don't have a resume, number one, and I'm a top producer. My wife, well, you should call that number. And I called that number and I didn't know who Chet Holmes was. And it was a guy named Mitch that we both know very well. I got on the phone with him and he says, whatever he says, I'm not hearing top producer. And I remember saying to him, he says, what are you not hearing? I said, let me tell you about being a top producer. And I just went bam, 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 right? Because that's what I embodied.
Yep.
And I remember he says, oh, okay, I guess we can give you a try. And I'm thinking to myself, you're not just going to give me a try, and like you, Craig, and I came on, I says, I'm going to be the top person. I don't know what that takes, but tell me what that is, and I will be it. And I was a few months behind you coming on, I think.
Yeah. So, that to this day, so Donald has said, so much about what I've meant to him and our relationship has been, and Donald's right. I'm at this time, I'm managing a sales team. Okay. And there's a lot of salespeople who just aren't, some of them seem to be there just for the camaraderie, which is cool. Cause again, there's no salary. It's pure 100% commission. So, so we want to invest our time as trainers, as managers, in those who are actually producing to get them to produce more and so forth. And to this day, Donald, when I tell stories that reflect around that time, I always mention you. In fact, I just mentioned your name. I inserted your name yesterday when I was giving an example to one of my clients as top producers.
I'm famous.
Yeah.
I've got the do I have it out? Oh, I don't have it out. I'll let you know. Okay, some other time. But yeah, so it is deciding inside yourself. So I am a successful business person. I am a coach.
Yeah.
I am successful. I am doing whatever I'm doing. You got to be able to say it to yourself first. Okay, as silly as that is. And if you're not saying it, go outside for a walk and just say the dang thing, right? Just wake up and say it. what do you got to lose? Right? It's just like, what have you got to lose?
A good point. There's this old saying, you can never outperform your own self-image.
Yeah. In working with clients too, I mean, so this is all for us here ourselves, but also this is your blueprint for any client you're going to work with. Ultimately, is getting people to this point is no matter what your modality, no matter what your expertise is, and this is what I've learned, 99 and 9/10% of it is getting this correct. It's not all the tactical, technical stuff. You can list out all the tactical, technical stuff. I always tell people with marketing, you know, so many people want to say, well, just tell me the words to use. It ain't the words, okay? That ain't it. Because that's what I call copy and paste marketing. That's not what's going to make it work for you. Because you can use those same words in two different verticals or two different people. But I'm going to tell you, the one that believes it is going to achieve it. The one that just pushes the words out with not the feeling or the energy, it's going to flop.
Yeah, you know, speaking of that, I have like clients come in all shapes and sizes, just like people, and levels of confidence too. So I've had clients, in fact, I have one client right now, I mentioned earlier that we're hiring him a GM, but he's having a hard time letting go. He also has a difficult time implementing the strategies and tactics that are going to improve his business. I mean, you know, I really have to coach him all the time, but he values it so much because he knows what that, you know, he's basically, the presentation I did recently on maximizing the value of your company, I actually used him because it was in his industry. Okay. So I got to speak to the national convention of that particular industry. So all the big players were there. And I didn't name him, but I just said, yeah, a client in this industry, right? And I'd gone and I've been working with him 4 years now. So I went back through all his P&Ls, and again, and I did the you know, the estimating of the value of the company, and his company is now worth 325% more, and actually probably a lot more than, well, yeah, 325% more than it was 4 years ago. Okay. And he's just, and again, and this is a slow mover. You know, it's like I wanted him to hire a GM, you know, 2 years ago, because he's so stressed out about being the, but by the way, one of the principles of the value of a company is that if it's owner operated versus you got someone running it for you and you're just out in the Bahamas or something, or you're riding your bike down the California coast or right, is basically 40% less valuable if it's an owner operator. So that's what I'm working with Chris, but you know, we got to get it where you're not running in the day to day, and then when you finally come to retire and sell, and you sell off into the sunset, right, or that becomes an annuity for you in some way, okay, that you're going to get 40% more value when you sell than if you sold it today.
That's
so
big.
Yeah, it's and but I guess I share that is again, it's the people coming, so you're all, you know, you're going to come across all different types of people who need different types of I was going to compare that. So that's Chris, where he's in his business, and then we can open up for Q&A. Is that I have another client, and by the way, they both have about the same size company, okay, revenue wise. Okay, this guy's in Mexico, I mentioned him earlier, and his whole goal, and one of the things I work with them on, you know, creating this vision board, right? What is it you want? And they're completely, so Chris is, again, is like closer to your age and ready to retire. He's been running the business for 40 years. Alejandro is been in business 9 years, maybe 10 years now. Okay. But his is, he wants to be a billionaire. He's serious about it. You know, he has a small business now. He's nowhere near even a millionaire yet. Right. But that's what he's serious about. So working and coaching him on what it's going to take for him to get there. And it's so interesting because he's like 3 or 4 times, he's like, oh, Craig, you know, I'm going to have to postpone our our coaching, because the revenue is not coming in, blah, blah, blah. And of course, 3 or 4 times, it's just like, no, you're not. You know, right. And of course, it's not that exactly those words, but get the point. Is like bringing but when you bring the value, and he's been with me 4 years as well, but different clients, so focused on, okay, are in different phases of their businesses. And one of the key components of growing a business is pivoting, being able to pivot,
Mhm.
just like it is in creating your life. Like I mentioned, I had to pivot, right? I've had to
Mhm.
pivot a few times. All business owners will have to pivot. As coaches, as you grow your own personal business, there'll be points where you'll want to pivot, switch direction slightly, take a different tact, implement some different strategies or tactics because you're stalled, or maybe you're even starting to go, downward. That's just the natural life cycle of all businesses. Initially there's a startup phase where you grow. Then the business typically will flatten out. And then you get to this pivot point, and oftentimes it either starts going down or you go on another upward trajectory. And so much of that has to do with your mindset, your vision, and pursuing that vision of excellence.
Yeah. Just got a few minutes to go here. We're actually a little bit over time. I'd like to hold these about 45 minutes because all of us are very valuable in our time, even though we don't bill by time, right? Any dying to ask questions of Craig before we jump here? Now's your chance. Just come off of mute and rock it here. Was this helpful for you guys today? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? Maybe I don't really look at the chat, but in the chat, could you put where we're at on a scale of 1 to 10? How did we do today?
I think there was a lot of golden nuggets in there, so I'm going to have to rewatch that for sure.
Okay.
But I enjoyed it.
So Digi in Nigeria.
Hi,
Oh my gosh,
Donald.
you're driving. Okay, pay attention.
I'm driving. Thank you. I've been listening. Thank you very much. I heard what he said. I thought it was very insightful. My quick question: he mentioned two clients. One was eager to go far and beyond. The other was okay being at a certain level. Is there anything you can do to help one want to go further?
I didn't quite understand everything. Donald, did you get that?
No, Digi, can you re-say that?
What I'm asking is, how do you help a client who want to achieve more based on your last story?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, one of the things I do is my philosophy, and I learned this from Scott Hallman, and you're talking about value, is what we call self-funded coaching. Okay. Self-funded coaching is I'm going to help you generate way more profits than you're generating right now, which will not only pay my fees, but leave you a whole lot more money in your pocket. So in order to do that, you have to be able to identify and assess what specific areas of their business have opportunity for growth that they're not tapping into. It's what we call low-hanging fruit profits. So many companies, if you're working with business owners, that, like I just mentioned, that all these guys have, I don't work with solopreneurs pretty much, I've moved past that, but they have, a few wrenches in the works, right? With them 7 employees, 9 employees, 20 employees, whatever it is. They have they have a sales division, they have a production line, whatever it is they're doing. And there's a lot of opportunity within those specific areas to make small incremental improvements. And those small incremental improvements multiply and compound to increase bottom line profit. And so that, that's what I do, is I'm looking for those opportunities that they're not yet tapped into, picking the low hanging fruit to start with. And then once they get them putting a whole lot more money in their pocket, then I become like, they never want to lose me, right? Because we just keep increasing revenue year after year, profits year after year, value of the company. Again, we're talking about, companies, like I said, 7 employees typically or more.
Yeah. But, even if you're not coaching a business, it is attaching your coaching to the value, the perception of value for whatever they want to achieve. So say if it's weight loss, what is the value of that weight loss to them? See, this is where you've got to get clear on the value and the value to them. And then that makes your coaching a no-brainer, or whatever you're offering. You have to understand their value and their big outcome.
And I'll say one more thing to that question too, Donald. And is it Gigi? Is that how do you say his name?
Yes, correct.
DG. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Is that if I was working with coaches, which I have done in the past, is that and you're working with the principle is the same. Okay, so like if you're, well, like if I would do an assessment of, how many opportunities did you get in the last period of time, the last month, the last 3 months to win a new client? Okay. And what are the steps to what are the steps of your process to go from generating interest, a lead, an opportunity, right? What are the specific steps that you take? So I break it down to finally get them to sign on the dotted line and hire you. Okay. And what's the percentage that of all opportunities that you move to each step? So we're getting down in the weeds a little bit now, but it's basically measuring. So another old adage of successful business is you cannot manage what you do not measure. So I teach them and I guide them to measure, not just opportunities and wins, because that's what everyone can tell you that, but the different steps along the way, and there's all you, and then I can help them to improve and end up with more clients out of the same number of leads.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Gigi?
Yeah,
I think we,
very helpful.
Yeah.
very good. Candy, we just got a few moments. What's your question? You gotta come off mute there.
I just wanted to know if you schedule your adventure travel priority or you schedule your business first, because I want to ski and coach, but I believe I'm not going all in my coaching because I make skiing a priority.
Okay.
It's the first world problem.
You live in a ski town?
I am. Yeah, it's snowing today. I'm going back up. It was a foot last Friday.
Can I ask you where?
I'm in Vernon, Silver Star, but I wanted to do Whistler, like I did Whistler for 10 years, but
So you're up in
Dale
Canada.
took over and ruined it.
You're up in Canada, eh?
Yes,
Love that. So I actually, it's in my, if I was to show you my calendar, so I live in a small town in Southern Oregon that the mountains only open 5 days a week, which actually works into my favor. So they're closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I pack all my clients in on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursday. And literally it's on my calendar, Monday, Thursday, Friday, the mornings are blocked out and it literally says ski day. Okay. Now I'll take afternoon appointments and clients and opportunities, but it's like, if it's not that, powder day, first line, I'm in the lineup, right? First lineup, first chair. And that's just what I do. Then I'll ski 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on how good it is or what else I got going. Then I'll come home and I'll get on the phone with clients.
yeah, my goal is 2 hours of skiing, not including travel, 3 hours if I could. But there was one more thing that just came up is, how do you change things if it's a powder day? Because if you're going to have a day full of people and you have 2 feet.
Well, I don't again, on 3 days a week that the mountain's open. I don't
Leave the
have,
mornings
I
open.
don't have clients in the morning. They're blocked out. I just say, I'm only available in the afternoon, or when I win a new client and I schedule them, I never schedule anyone for Monday, Thursday, or Friday morning, ever.
Thank
like
you. I have some ideas. I have to structure it.
Leaving this day.
So there's that time's taken. They don't know what it's taken by. They don't have to know.
Thank you. I feel complete. Thank you, Donald. This is a great day.
Oh, good. Okay. I knew you guys would like Craig. So Craig, my friend, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Good use of time.
Been fun.
And I'll get the recording posted there. Again, join the private Facebook group. Send me a direct email. Tell anybody that you think is appropriate to join us here, and let's rock it. Fair enough?
Hey, Donald, don't sign off yet. I want to change my background here.
Okay, go for it.
And who was the gal in Canada I was just talking with?
Candy.
Okay, can you see that now? Is my background changed?
Looks
Yes,
good.
nice lines, Craig. That's exactly what I want to do is just
Yeah,
look
so
at my artwork.
If I move, you see that little person, that skier there?
That's you.
That's me.
That's me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to see it. You got to believe it. You got to go after it. There's just no other way around it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Okay, my friends.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great
See you
week.
guys next Thursday. Show up.
Ciao.